Hi, it's Elizabeth Sweetwater here. I have a new video for you. This time I have made a tutorial on the pocket dress, only this one is slightly different. It has different pockets, it has a higher waistline and a slightly smaller collar. I have used a vintage dress for this one, so it's also an upcycle. Enjoy the video. Before I start, I will make a few pattern alterations. The pocket dress has a lowered waist, which I want to raise a bit. I also want a pocket on the inside instead of a patch pocket, and a collar that is slightly smaller than the one we have right now. So first we need to raise the waist 5 centimeters. You will do this on the front piece and also on the back piece. Here I have my back piece, 2-part back piece. I have raised the waistline 5 centimeters on both pieces, and then I added seam allowance, so 5 centimeters up and then seam allowance. After that you need to measure your new waistline, so I've got 8.5 here, 9.5 here, and together that's 18 centimeters. I will now also have to raise the waistline of my skirt part, so again you add 5 centimeters to the waist. This is my old waistline. You go up 5 centimeters and there you have your new waistline. Then you measure out the waist from the top part. You start at center back and you measure the new waistline, which was 18 centimeters in my case. And then you need to redraw the side seam. So you go in a little bit to create a little bit of a waist and you connect to the existing side seam. Don't take out too much because then you will lose your hip width. And then of course you add a seam allowance at the top and on the side. Finally I will make the collar a bit smaller. First you will trace the existing collar because you will cut in the original. Trace the collar on a piece of paper and cut it out. Then you add 1 centimeter to the center back because I will cut away 1 centimeter from the front, so you will need the extra centimeter in the back. After that you can cut away the seam allowance all around the outside. Like so. You leave the seam allowance of the neck area. Then if you think this is a little bit too pointy, you can also make it rounder by using the original collar and tracing it. And then also move the shoulder point 1 centimeter towards the center back. And that's your smaller collar. Now for the pockets, I will draw the shape of the pocket in the skirt first. For that you place your pocket piece on the skirt. The dotted line goes on the waistline. This bit here is the belt loop, which I won't be using. Then align the top with the side seam, and you can see that the bottom doesn't quite align with the side seam. That's because we have placed the pocket a lot higher than before. So in the original you would place it there, but now we're going to put it a lot higher. So now you can trace the pocket line here and you trace it there. Now you have to copy this pocket part twice. Once with the pocket entrance cut out and once with the corner of the skirt still intact. And then when you cut out the front of the skirt, you also need to cut out the whole pocket entrance. For this dress I am using a vintage jersey dress which I took apart, so the challenge is now to cut out as many pieces as I can from this dress. So I managed to cut out almost all my pieces out of the vintage dress. Some bits I had to sew together, you will see that later. I will go through all of the pieces to show you what you need for this hack and how to prepare them. First of all, I have a zipper here, which is 45 centimeters long. The side pieces, front and back. Then we have 2 front pieces, and you need to iron on a strip of interfacing on them that is not stretchable. This is the back piece, and I have already put a facing on the inside with a label. And as you can see, this back piece is supposed to be one piece, but I had to sew all the bits together because I had little fabric. Same with the facing, that's supposed to be one piece, but I've sewn two bits together. Also here, a strip of interfacing on the inside. Then we have the collar pieces. On one of them you need to iron some interfacing, so two of them. Then I have two sleeve pieces, some ribbing for the sleeve on the bottom of the sleeve. Then we have pockets, the inside pockets and the pocket part that's going to be visible. I didn't have enough of this fabric, so I just added a little piece that's visible to the pocket piece. And then we have a front and a back skirt, and the front skirt has the pocket openings taken out. And normally you would also cut the skirt pieces on the fold, but in this case I didn't have enough fabric, so I gave it a seam. So that's all the pieces that you need. First I will pin and sew the princess seams of the front and the back. For that you place the two parts together with right sides together, and as you can see there's a little notch here and a little notch there. So you start the pinning by pinning these two together. Then you pin the end. And the beginning. And now you can pin the spaces in between these pins. And then you end up with a pinned piece like so. Then you will have to sew them together with an overlocker. I've already done the back part, so this one is already sewn together with the overlocker. If you're finding it a bit difficult to use the overlocker for seams, you can also start with sewing it with a sewing machine or just basting it and then use the overlocker, because it can be quite difficult to make these shapes. So after you've done the overlocking, then you can do some top stitching, and I always top stitch about 0.5 centimeters from the edge. So then you've got your front and your back piece done. Then you need to finish your shoulders of the back and the front, and also the shoulders of your facing and also the outside of your facing. So you can finish those with the overlocker. So the princess seams are in. I've finished the shoulders with an overlock. Then I put the front and the back right sides together and sewn the shoulders together with a stretch stitch and iron them open. Now we're going to continue with the collar. For that I have traced the collar pattern piece and I've cut away the seam allowance, and now I can use it as a template. So on the inside of my collar, where I ironed the interfacing, I can place this pattern piece and then trace it on the interfacing like that. So once I've done that, I will have a nice stitch guide so I can make a very neat curve. Once I've done that, I will pin them together and I will stitch the collar. So the two collar pieces are now sewn together, and as you can see I have only thinned out the point of the collar, and the rest I just left the way it is, 1 centimeter seam allowance. and I have pressed open the seam. It's a bit hard to press open the corner. You can use a sleeve board for this end and the middle, and sometimes I just put my fingers in it and just quickly iron it, but I don't think that's very advisable if you don't want to burn your fingers. Then you can turn the collar inside out. And then press it flat and top stitch on 1/2 centimeter along the edge. The collar is ready and top stitched, and now I will attach it to the neck. You start by pinning the mid-back to the mid-back of the neck, like so. Then you have an indication where the shoulder goes. And then you pin the front of the collar on 1 centimeter from the edge. After you've pinned those points, you can pin the areas in between, and you can sew the collar on with just a regular sewing stitch. The collar is now sewn against the neck. I just used a regular sewing stitch on the sewing machine, and now we'll pin and sew the zipper. You place your zipper upside down on the front piece, and you start pinning from the top all the way down to the bottom. The zipper puller needs to be 1 centimeter from the top of the neck. Once the zipper is pinned on both sides, you can open it up, and that makes it easier to sew. I will sew the zipper in with a zipper foot. So once the zipper is sewn in, it needs to be finished with a facing piece. This is my facing piece. You will pin it on the inside of the top. First you place it right sides together, and then you'll pin it on the inside. This way you only have to follow the visible stitch line when you sew the facing. So this one is already sewn in. As you can see, I have thinned out the corner, and I have also overlocked the neck. Then you can turn it inside out. And start top stitching all the way around. So you start at the bottom and you go all the way around to the bottom. So after this is top stitched, we move on to the sleeve. We're going to insert a sleeve. For that we will use the notches. The middle of the sleeve goes onto the shoulder. Then these notches go together. These go together. And then you pin in between. This side I've already done. So this side already has its sleeve inserted. After you've done the sleeve, you can press it on a sleeve board. Make sure you always press the seam in this direction. And then the top part is done, and then we're going to move on to the skirt. So the biggest difference between the original pocket dress and this one is the method of making the pockets. With the original you make a line pocket that is patched onto the skirt, and it has a belt loop attached to it. On Weebly you can find a step-by-step tutorial on that. For these pockets I am going to insert a pocket. First thing you do is you pin the lining pocket piece right sides together to the pocket opening, and then you stitch it 1 centimeter from the edge. You iron open the seam, and then fold it to the inside like this, and then you top stitch it. Then the next stage is you fold it over and you place your other pocket piece against it, and then you pin both pocket pieces together. And now you can overlock both pocket pieces together, and it's also a good idea to stitch the pocket here and there so it won't move when you sew the dress together. So top piece and skirt piece are both done, and now it's time to attach them together. So right sides together. Let's turn this over. And then of course the middle of the skirt goes onto the middle of the top. And then you pin the ends and the space in between. Same on this side, and then you overlock it together, and then you can cut the remnants of the zipper. Of course, then also you attach the back skirt to the back, and then once that is done, we're going to sew the side seams. But before we do that, we need to attach 2 loops so we can hold the belt. So I've made these tiny loops, and you need to pin them 1/2 on the top and 1/2 on the skirt, and that will be sewn into the side seam as well. The top and the skirt part are now sewn together. A handy tip is in the front waist seam I made 2 notches, so you can iron the zipper down and the pockets up. So a little notch here, seam there, seam there, seam there, and they can go opposite directions. I've also sewn the side seam with a overlock stitch, making sure that the waist seam at the front points up and at the back it points down. And the same under the arm. This seam points up and this one points down. And that way you don't get bulky seams. So nearly done. Very stormy outside, if you can hear. Turning it inside out. And all that is left to do now is sew the side seam of your cuff. Fold it. And now it's ready to be attached. So right sides together, like so. And then you pin and sew it all the way around. And I've also overlocked the edge of the dress, which I will now fold in 2 centimeters, pin it, and then hem it. So that's it, the dress is finished. That's it for this pocket dress hack tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to get notifications when there's a new video out. And I see you next time.